What's up, y'all? Welcome to Frankly Hockey. That is the Hockey Insider, Frank Seravalli. I am John Buccigross on Victory Plus, YouTube, X. And like my boy Jake Plazowski, head pro, Sankaty Head, one of my favorite golf courses in America, he just put us on in his car the other day and just listened to us like a podcast, Frank. You know, call up and just drive and listen right through the speakers. You can do that too.
Wait, that is so weird that you mentioned him, because I was going through my DMs last night and he actually sent me wanted to link up in Italy, and I just didn't get the message until yesterday.
That's weird. Jake's a great friend, one of the great young golf pros in America. Met him down here in Naples, Florida. They moved on to Sankaty, which is an amazing golf course on Nantucket. Big Pittsburgh Penguin fan, Western PA guy. That was our connection, and just loves his hockey. Yeah, he was over there with his wife, and he wanted to run into as many media people that he loves following, like you. And so yeah, someday we'll break bread, the three of us, and talk hockey, which we love to do. This is, again, Frankly Hockey. And, oh, yeah, shout out Grand Rapids Griffins here, Frank. Head coach Dan Watson, they're 43-9-3. They're a wagon in the American League.
That's Colorado Avalanche numbers.
It is. It's March 10th, 2026. Happy birthday, Tuukka Rask, 39 years old. Tuukka, 15 years with the Bruins. Really a nice career, probably a bit overlooked. Didn't quite get that cup. 2014 Vezina, 308 wins. Bruins record for goalie records for games played and wins. 2013 playoffs, Frank, up to the cup final, 940 save percentage. 2019 playoffs, right up to the cup final, 934 save percentage. That usually gets a team a Stanley Cup. Obviously, the Bruins came very close both times.
Yeah, competitor, battler. Happy birthday, Tuukka.
Absolutely. All right, that takes us right into the Bruins. Although first, Franks and Beans, our top story in Franks and Beans. Here are the beans, and there's Frank's wiener. You just told me Sid is skating in Raleigh. Crosby, the Penguins, hanging around. Big overtime win against the Bruins. Could have had the 4 points in their first two games without Malkin. But Sid, what do you think? Obviously providing some leadership on the road. How close do you think he is?
Pretty close. I think, look, I mean, remember, we were at the Olympics and he was talking about playing 4 days after the fact. So,
right.
I mean, clearly he's getting much closer. He's been skating for a little more than a week now with the team. So I'd say, I don't know if tonight is a possibility or not, but he's getting very close. I don't think tonight's a possibility, but very close.
Okay. Tuukka was my bridge to this Bruins note. How about the line of Middlestat, Zacha, and Arvidsson? Marco Sturm's, second line at 5-on-5, Frank, they've scored 29 goals while allowing 13. That's plus 16, 5-on-5. There's only one line better in the league. That's Lehkonen, McKinnon, and Natchez at plus 21. So, again, one reason why the Bruins are in the playoff position, that little sneaky line of Middlestat, Zacha, Arvidsson, they're not giving stuff up, and they're contributing with offense.
Kind of glad that Victor Arvidsson has had this big bounce back season, 18 goals, 35 points. I'm not really sure why it didn't work in Edmonton, because you thought that he would be that, one of those pieces that could have been connective tissue that kind of puts everything together. And it just didn't. And sometimes I guess that happens. I mean, just like with any relationship or marriage, chemistry is a real thing. I know injuries have plagued Arvidsson over the year, and maybe that just prevented him from being at his best, but this is a really capable player.
He can wire the puck. He's gritty and gutty in the corner. So yeah, he's got an assortment of skills. Also, we mentioned Sid skating. Sasha Barkov also skating for the Panthers. Yep. We'll see if it's worth it to bring him back for a handful of games. I think they should shut them all down, Frank. Reinhart, Marchand, Barkov, just take an extra month off. Start your rest and rehab now. Get ready for the fall.
Well, I mean, if they think about how they've played so late 3 years in a row, I mean, right. If you take the extra month off now, it's almost like compared to how short their previous off seasons have been, like having 2 off seasons in one. So I'd imagine that they'd be pretty rejuvenated come next fall.
I know it's professional hockey. People pay good money. It's just like a Broadway play or a concert. You're not going to buy a ticket to go see Pearl Jam and have someone pinch it for Eddie Vedder. I get it. So it is a fine line, but that's one team that I think should be extra cautious. The Wild are home to the Mammoth tonight. Marcus Johansson looks like he's back in. Frank Sturm will come out. Gustafsson in net. Nice slate of games. We'll see who Frank's going to speculate tonight. Last night, thought you had the Flames. They came back, and then, boy, the Capitals just buried them late.
Oh, third period was rough for Calgary. I don't know if they ran out of gas or what.
The top story on our Frankly Hockey Rundown we'll get to in a minute. It's going to be the Senators. They have a 7-game point streak, so I'm not going to empty the tank here, but they're 3 points behind the Bruins. Stützle's cooking. Reimer got a shutout last night. Only saw 16 shots, so they really were smothering. And but Jake Sanderson, that injury as well. We'll talk about that. So what's up with the Sens? They still got a good shot. Bedard, 2 assists last night, 116 and 117. That passes Eddie Olczyk for most by a Blackhawk player, age 20 or younger. Vincent Trocheck had 3 assists last night, most in any game this season, and tied for a career high many times. The Rangers, I think the Flyers were already done, but that certainly buried Philly probably. We talked about that afternoon game. Yeah.
I was going to say, Frank Nazar, 6 points in his last 4 games for the Hawks. He's turning the corner and heating up a little bit again. Much needed after a really weird year for him. Right out of the gate, you're thinking this guy's going to be on fire and have a monstrous year, and that contract extension is going to be a laugher. And then at some point this year, some injuries piled up, and you go, ooh, I don't know how much of a sure bet that is.
Yeah, last year he was cooking. I remember late last year tweeting, I go, like, this guy's going to be a point per game guy. Like, he is so fast. He's got teammates now coming, like 70 to 80 points here, I think, coming up this year would be possible. And he got off to a good start. But, yeah, then injuries. And so, yeah, they need a couple of those young guys to start going a little bit anyway. You want to drag out this win. I really like Rinzel a lot. I'm so bullish on him. Glad to see he's getting to play now. Hope they pump him out there 20 minutes. I think he's got so much to his game, Frank. I almost like him more than Levshinov sometimes. But they're both can be really, really good as a 1-2 righty.
But you got to have at least one of them be a sure thing and pop.
Yeah. Or that just delays the window. Now you're starting again, trying to develop someone again. But so the Hawks are just hoping these guys slowly pop, get the big free agent, make the big trade with all these assets at some point, and then boom, get there as a playoff perennial now for a decade with Bedard. That Kings-Jackets game was a fun afternoon game to watch yesterday. It was a big one for both as the game went on back and forth. Columbus came back to tie it. Then it goes to overtime. And it's going to be a big extra point for someone. The Kings get it. They're just a point behind the Kraken for the second wild card spot with the Kempe overtime winner. Kopitar had an assist. He's 2 points shy of Dion for most in franchise history. I bet people probably already assume, Frank, he had the most points in franchise history, but needs a couple more. And how about Connor Garland? We were both bullish on him. He was one of my big moves of the trade deadline. First multi-goal game in just about a year. And he went no goals in the last 23 with Vancouver. And he's just really fitting in nice with Columbus. I just think that's a perfect personality fit, perfect market fit for the American.
Don Waddell's had some nice touch. That Mason Marchment acquisition has been nails. So this year they've grabbed the right wingers. And what a quick turn for both those teams. Columbus in Tampa tonight. That was a makeup game, as you remember. And Boston or LA is in Boston tonight. So that's a real quick turnaround for both teams.
Yeah, Kings, Bruins, Blue Jackets, Lightning, Sharks, Sabres. That's going to be fun in Buffalo tonight. 8 straight sellouts for Buffalo. Toronto, Montreal.
That's the game of the night.
It is. It is. Macklin in Buffalo. Every game's a playoff atmosphere in Buffalo these days. It's great watch. Red Wings in Florida. The Red Wings got to keep winning here. They're teetering. I always thought they were fine, but they got to win like 4 or 5 in a row here and just put that to bed. Flames and Rangers. Bleh. Penguins and Hurricanes. Big one for the Penguins. Can they take it on the road? Islanders, Blues. Blues having good out of the break. We'll see if that continues and maybe carries over. They need to do that and get some bright spots and see what they're going to do in the offseason with Alex Dean.
Don't you want to lose as many games as possible? Like, why do you want points now?
I know.
All you're doing is carrying yourself to the mushy middle.
Let's get a top 3 pick, people. Wild and Mammoth, we talked about them. Jets and Ducks. Ducks got some injuries. John Carlson acquired in a trade from Washington, as we know. Frank, he's yet to play. Got a little lower body injury. He's going to join the team on the road trip. He hopes to play at the end of it. So I really want to see Carlson on that power play. And then Troy Terry, again, he continues to recover. It's been a tough year for him. Got a recurring upper body. They're hoping he plays on the road trip as well. He's going on it. We'll see if he plays. And again, the Jets are if they can win another 5 in a row, suddenly they're
Mm.
kind of because again the bottom part of the West is it's havable. You can get it if you really want it.
It's a flat out pillow fight for the eighth seed. I mean, who really wants it? It seems like no one on varying nights. Kings, Sharks, Kraken. You could throw the Preds in there, I guess. Now the Jets. I mean, it's kind of a mess.
Yeah, well, the Preds play the Kraken tonight. That's an interesting late 10 o'clock Eastern start for those teams. And then Oilers Avalanche. I always wonder, Frank, like are the Avs, they want to keep making a statement to the Oilers, like just pound them, really make sure that their self-esteem is not good in case they see each other in the Western Conference Final, which is certainly very possible. I think Edmonton, I think they've done enough now, I think, to win a couple playoff series and get back to the Western Conference Final, but they're going to see Dallas, Minnesota, or Colorado. So want to see what the Avalanche do with their acquisitions as well. Kadri started on the wing. They can do that. Now they got a lot of centers, but those guys can kind of move to the wing. Injuries, you have depth if someone does get hurt. So curious to see what Bednar is going to do with Kadri, if he wants to get him in the middle at some point or keep him on that wing until the injured guys, Lehkonen and Landeskog, come back. And then
Huge
one more
Lehkonen
being
fan.
Yeah, me too. Got him at the deadline in 22, won the cup, kept him. His playoff numbers are awesome. Captain Austin Matthews, 11-game goal drought, the longest since his rookie season. So tonight would be a good night for him to break that in Montreal. So we'll see. I think that, I don't know what kind of prop that could be, but if I did that, I would probably sprinkle some on AMATs, maybe get one tonight in Montreal. 11-game goal drought, longest since rookie season. A little Canadian Montreal juice to get his attention. At some point, it's got to happen, right?
Bo Grew making his Toronto Maple Leafs debut tonight in Montreal. And as Craig Berube said yesterday, if you can't get up to play the rival Canadians who are in a playoff spot, I don't know what to tell you.
All right, to the Frankly Hockey Rundown now. And let's talk about the Ottawa Senators. Here come the Sens, 9-1-2 in their last 12. We mentioned a nice suffocating win last night. There are some of the numbers right there. We talked about all year long trying to get saves. Special teams solid. You see the goals prevention. That's the key down the stretch. And it's looking good in Ottawa. The only downer, of course, is the Sanderson injury and how long he could be out. But right now, Ottawa is trending up, Frank.
They are. And I mean, you look at this stat board here since Jan 25. So this is before the Olympic break, as you know, and they've managed to play well on both ends of it. And the key for me is this goal prevention, 2.08 goals against per game, best in the NHL over this stretch. And that's the name of the game for Ottawa. Somehow, despite having the worst statistical save percentage entering the Olympic break, they had a positive goal differential this season, which speaks to how much their offense clicks, how talented their players are. They just haven't been able to keep the puck out of their net. And so you're right. Now that's trending in a positive direction. And by the way, I know that everyone beats Vancouver, but this scene last night in the Pacific Northwest with Sens fans taking over Rogers Arena. I mean, I can't recall Senators fans traveling this well, being this engaged. Take a listen.
Marcus Pettersson.
Go Sens, go.
Out to center. The Sens Nation is represented here tonight in this building. Belander.
I mean, that's electric. A road game, West Coast. And I know it's an easy ticket to get right now, inexpensive, but man, the Sens are kind of coming alive right before our eyes. And then, of course, there's this Sanderson injury, which just makes you cringe. This is against Seattle.
85 right there.
Yeah, in the corner week to week, and you see him coming off, clutching that right shoulder. So can they do it without Jake Sanderson? That's going to be the key.
He's such a key guy. He's like Werenski in Columbus, some of those defensemen who are so important to the whole operation. And, of course, the Olympian was good in Four Nations late in that tournament in the gold medal game, and there are the numbers right there. And obviously provides offense, but he eats up ice time, as you see there, about 25 minutes a night. Just a good all-around tough player who's really coming into his own. So again, it's just one player. There's a lot of players on a hockey team. You can't overcome injuries to good players, but it's going to be up to this 6 now to try to keep those numbers down. And obviously it's a team situation, just giving up 16 shots on net last night to the obviously, soul-crushing Canucks who are just waiting for the season to get over. And coming up, they have Montreal home tomorrow, Ducks, Sharks. So a 3-game homestand. Then they go on the road, the Capitals, Islanders, Maple Leafs again, Rangers, Red Wings, who they probably think they might be better than. They got the Penguins at home. So this little stretch here, if Ottawa stays hot, they can gain on people in front of them. And if they can get some regulation wins, again, they're going to be right there. They are breathing down the necks. Montreal's got 2 games in hand on Detroit. So Montreal could be a top 3 Atlantic team. As you see right here, Montreal has played 62 games, Detroit 64. And so they could, certainly finish up and have that opening round series with Buffalo or Tampa. Again, Tampa has the points percentage lead right now, but Buffalo has banked their points. So it's going to be fun to kind of figure out as we go down the stretch, the matchups. We'll know probably who's in for the most part, although we could go down to the last game 2 or 3 for both wild cards.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And so the big question, if you're a Sens fan, is like, who's the most vulnerable as you look at these teams that are ahead of them? Will Pittsburgh, for instance, slide far enough down to become a wild card team? That would require Columbus to push them down to that spot, because 3 in the Metro get in. That's where the math starts to get a little bit hazy. So as you take a look at who is the most vulnerable, and you've got a few different candidates, I'd say you could put Boston in that category. You could put the Detroit Red Wings in that category. But here's the trouble. Look at each of these teams' records since the back half of the Olympic break. So since play resumed, 3-2-2, 3-2-1, 3-2-1. The trouble for Columbus and for Ottawa is that 3-2-2 for the Pittsburgh Penguins extrapolated over the next 19 games gives them exactly 100 points.
Right.
That's where the math starts to get difficult. Exactly 100 points. Boston is going to be very close at 3-2-1. Detroit 3-2-1. If they keep reeling off, it's not sexy. It's not pretty. Like, you're not getting excited by going, 3-2-1 every 6-game sample size. But that's the reality of the math and the standings.
Right. So you need them to go like 0-4, and you need to go 4-0, and that we mentioned the 3-point game, and that's why it's as an opponent. Again, if you're Columbus and Ottawa and you're watching some of these games, especially against Detroit versus Boston, Montreal versus Boston, Boston versus Detroit, you do not want those to go to 3-point games. Someone's guaranteed 2, and you just don't want the other one to get 1. And so, for Columbus and Ottawa, that is the reason why. Because this time of year, the teams who are bad for a reason. They've traded people. They've lost a bit of their zip. And the good teams are kind of thinking about other things. They're thinking about the postseason, especially Carolina and Tampa. So even though it says you have a hard schedule the rest of the way, that's why we always have to be careful playing the schedule game. They have a difficult schedule. They have an easy schedule. It's this is professional hockey. You don't know what mood a team is in, how many games and how many nights it's been for them, all those kinds of things. So for Columbus and Ottawa right now, slightly doesn't look like much. Columbus is 2 points behind Boston, and they have a game in hand on the Islanders. If they win that game in hand, then they're 1 point behind the Islanders. So, that's why you really got to get going here. And in Columbus, man, they could have won those last 2 games. It's a whole different story. And then they got themselves 76 points, and now they're tied with Boston. And now they're a point behind the Islanders with a game in hand. So that's what you just can't blow those opportunities. It's difficult once you're behind, and you can't blow them this time of year. So I hope it goes down and keeps going down the wire, and you just got to keep pushing and getting these win streaks, and that's what Ottawa and Columbus need to do.
As Alex, you can throw the standings up there again. Is there value in the Carolina Hurricanes getting the top seed? Like, does that matter? Should they push for that? Should Tampa push to get it?
Well, historically, playoff games are 50-50. Last year, the road team was better in the Stanley Cup playoffs. There's just the data is there. It's not worth pushing for. It does take a jump on game sevens. Game sevens makes a nice little leap. I think it's like high 60s to 70% of game sevens are won by the home team, especially when you score first. And that's what it really comes down to. Scoring first in a game 7 at home is almost a lock. And so, yeah, I don't think it is. Now, obviously,
I was just thinking in terms of matchup. Like, is there a clear, like, to me, wild card 1 and 2 are indistinguishable from each other.
Agree. So, yeah. So in this case, no, I would not push for home ice or push for an opponent here. It's either going to be Ottawa, Columbus, Boston, Montreal, Detroit. And, Detroit has offensive issues. Montreal has some defensive issues. They've given up 209 goals, but still a good plus 13 team. They have such a good offense, but a younger team. I would think Boston with Swayman is if Carolina had to choose, they would rather play Columbus, maybe Ottawa than Boston. With Swayman and McAvoy and Pasternak, and the Bruins might be looked at as a little more solid. They're a plus 12, but yeah, overall you're right. And even if the Islanders were somehow dropped to a wild card, not very much. And the same in the West too. Obviously, Utah would be the best of the wild card teams. I think they definitely are. I
think the West is totally different because as you look at the West here, the real push is to be wild card 1. Like, Utah has every incentive to switch over to the Pacific and face a really meandering, mild, weak Pacific Division crop. I'd much rather take my chances there than in the Central Division. That's the group of death. I mean, there's you're getting Colorado in round 1. Good luck. And then if somehow you pull off a great upset, congratulations, your prize is Dallas or Minnesota.
Yeah, Utah, I think, is secure with wild card 1. They have a 6-point lead. They have 4 more games to play at home. They have 18 wins at home. They're a good team. They're plus 27, 6-3-1 in their last 10. They're going to play the Pacific Division winner, whether that's Edmonton, Vegas, and Anaheim. And that's very, very close as well. Regulation wins wise, points wise. Anaheim has a game in hand on the other twos. So it's going to be close, but it will be Utah against the Pacific winner. I think, Frank, it's a 6-point lead.
Okay, so let's say Utah and Anaheim. I mean, that's what it is on paper right now.
Right.
Would Utah open as the series favorite?
It's a great point. I think they would, don't you think? I get the hunch they would.
I would think so.
Anaheim's minus 10 goal differential. Utah's plus 27. I mean, Anaheim's defense is just not shown to be playoff worthy right now, Frank. When it gets slower, when it gets meatier, Utah can play that game. They have some grindiness to their game. Even the smaller guys like Cooley and Keller can play that way. And we saw that game in Columbus the other night. I just felt like, that was kind of a grimy game. Now,
it's hit or miss though with Utah because they have other nights that they just don't have it at all. Like I saw them against Chicago. They were at home 10 days ago, and they had 0 compete, like none. I think Utah has all the talent in the world, but they're hit or miss, and they also have probably not. They have a significant disadvantage in goal going against Anaheim though.
No doubt.
That would be one that stands out.
No doubt.
We also have Anaheim with John Carlson yet, as you just pointed out. So maybe that changes that dynamic a little bit.
It could. Absolutely. You're right. If they get him and Terry back for playoffs, then it's like, well, you know what? This team can score. They might be a slight favorite. But Utah is the 4th best goal suppression team in the league. Colorado has given up the fewest. Tampa is 2nd. Dallas is 3rd. Utah is 4th. Carolina 5th. So they are in that group. So they can play low-scoring, kind of comfortable games there. And like I said, plus 27. And so I do think they're going to see the Pacific winner. And in terms of, again, the most vulnerable in the East, a lot's going to play out here in the next 5 to 7 games. We probably have a much better idea is if Columbus and Ottawa, are they sticking around? Are they going to go on the road and lose a couple of games in a row? And suddenly that it gets up to be a 5-point lead with 11 to play, then they're toast. So we'll see. We'll know a lot here. It's March Madness time at the wild card line in both the East and the West. All right, Nashville. We mentioned the Predators playing Seattle tonight. They've seemed to be a mirage all year long. Are they really a playoff team? I mean, they're only 3 points out. You just don't know. But they had a chance here to really kind of make a decision, Frank, at the deadline, stock up draft picks and the like for the next GM to kind of put his stamp on things and get them back moving forward. It's a weird team. Even Forsberg and Yossi are at an age. It's like, well, what do we do with them? Like, they really have a lot in the arsenal if they really wanted, I hate to say the word tear it down, but what happened to the Preds on deadline day in your eyes?
Well, that's, I think, one of the great mysteries of the deadline as we consider it a handful of days on is what exactly were the Nashville Predators doing? So you decided to sell and gut the bottom half of your lineup. You trade Cole Smith and Michael McCarron and the low-hanging fruit that was out there. But what was the thought process keeping on, like, Eric Holla, pending unrestricted free agent? Okay, so Barry Trotz acknowledged that he got good offers for Steven Stamkos. Ryan O'Reilly had tons of interest. I know at least one team was lusting after Ryan O'Reilly. Like, that was the guy that they saw as the key number one trade deadline acquisition. And then Jonathan Marchessault was like dying to get out of Nashville, and they couldn't facilitate making any of these things happen. Like, I don't understand how you did this in half measures. Like, why trade some guys, but then none of the guys that actually moved the needle in terms of getting you a return? So the Holla one to me is particularly unforgivable, given that he had such a great Olympics and is an unrestricted free agent. Like, at least you could say the other guys, they all have term on their deals, and hey, we're trying to figure out what we're going to be moving forward. But Barry Trotz really positioned it when he spoke to the media as, hey, I'm trying to manage this situation and serve both masters, was a quote that he ended up using. And I just don't get it. He said, I have to do my job for the present to give this team a chance, but I also have to worry about the future. That was the balancing act. When you're close enough but not there, you have to serve two masters sometimes. If I'm a Preds fan, I just want Barry Trotz to put a stake in the ground. Hey, we're not good enough. Even if we get in, we're cannon fodder for the Colorado Avalanche in round one. We have all these guys that are on the wrong side of 30. Move them out. Get something while the getting's good. All these teams are interested in these players. What happens if a year from now they're no good and they aren't? Steven Stamkos, his value may never be higher than it is right now. Ryan O'Reilly, same thing. I guess I don't, like, we didn't talk about them enough because their deadline was so perplexing.
Holla, 34 years old. He'll turn 35 this month, like you said. Having a pretty good year, 10 goals, 21 assists. He looked good in the best on best, like you said. I just, the Kings got a third for Scott Lawton. I would think they would have got at least a third. They might have got a second for Holla. I don't know if anybody offered that to him. What's
100%
that?
100% a second.
Yeah. And yeah, I can think of multiple teams who would have, even someone like, Carolina. I know they believe in Logan Stankoven in the middle, and Rod Brindamore sounded pretty down that they didn't add. Obviously, they have their model and they have their system in the Carolina front office, and they're not going to make a deal they don't think is just not a good deal. But you can tell Rod Brindamore talking, to the local reporter, like, dang, we kind of wish we did something. But, they've done a lot in the past and it hasn't worked. They've tried with, Gensel and Rantanen and flipped everything there last year. But yeah, even something like that, maybe that would have worked. And just a depth move for some of these good teams that Eric Holla has shown he can play, and obviously the adrenaline rush he would have had. So, yeah, I'm not sure. And it really speaks to, I don't know, you think about the other sports, Frank, whether, basketball, and it depends on the owner. Like the Phoenix Suns owner is really into his team. He's plugged in. He's a fan. Football owners tend to really be plugged into the league, and even some of the personnel moves, especially with the coach. The owners tend to fire coaches in the NFL. They don't let their GM do it. They got to pass it by them. Baseball, like, is anybody in Nashville paying attention? Like, do they know, or did they tell Barry Trotz to do anything? They gave him just carte blanche, a guy going out the door, do what you want to do. They're not saying, no, please empty. We want prospects. I know we don't know the sport ins and out, but we want prospects, and we want to lower our payroll the rest of the way and get prospects. But it sounds like that discussion wasn't had.
Do a lot of the heavy lifting so that the next guy that takes over, since you've announced that you're retiring, starts with as clean a slate as possible. Don't hand him a pile of over 30s that have term attached. I think it's a different scenario trying to envision those guys starting on your team from the beginning of the year and making them off-season trades, as opposed to like, hey, that guy could really help us right now. The immediacy of it. I think it's easier to move some of those guys that have term right now. I know that sounds counter to the norm, but I don't get what they're doing. I don't know if they somehow convince themselves looking at the standings that they could be a playoff team. Even if they are, I think the more serious conversation needs to be, what's the long-term vision and plan? How do we get where we are a contending team again, not just a happy to be here playoff team? Because let's face it, Preds fans they got used to the playoffs for a long time. They were in the playoffs like every year, but they don't want to make it and lose in the first or second round. They want to win a Stanley Cup. And that record or track record for success, that bar that's been set, not being like authentically in that mix, I think is problematic for their market. Like the market has changed. It's no longer just, we're happy to make the playoffs and be here.
Yeah, they're 7th from the bottom right now. Certainly trading a couple of guys might have gotten down to 5, but here comes Toronto. They might make them 8th from the bottom. And, if they can get down that top 3 or 4, they could draft someone who might be the best prospect in their system. But obviously it might be too late for that now, as they're in a fight for the finish. And, they're right around a 500 team in their last 10. You could see them kind of finishing right there and pretty much staying where they are. And who knows, they might get some lottery luck. We saw what the Islanders did last year in the lottery, moving up to 1.
You got to make the lottery, though.
What's that?
You got to make the lottery. They're not in the lottery zone right now.
Right. But I think they will be a non-playoff team. And like you said, but it's more than that. It's what's in the cupboard next year, and what are you going to do in the summer? Are you going to move some of these guys into summer? Obviously, you're going to lose Holla for nothing now, unless you bring him back. And then they might bring him back at a number, I suppose. But we'll see. But yeah, those are Nashville. Some interesting things the last couple of years. Been kind of an odd. Well, I guess history will tell. Time will tell the next few years if it really did set them back or if it worked out okay. We'll see. But they are who we thought they were at this point. Meanwhile, the Kings, another team. They made a couple of deals. They traded Warren Fogle. They traded Scott Laughton. They got Artemi Panarin. So there's the Panarin deal first. Then Laughton, they got a second, 28, second in 26, conditional third in 26. Perry went to Tampa, Fogle. So, but here they are. They still have a bit of zip to their game. They beat the Blue Jackets yesterday. They're right there on the cusp. What do you make of the Kings and how they're going to finish this season?
Such a weird deadline for the Kings. Like, I understand the spot that they were in. Panarin comes in, everyone's excited. Fiala gets hurt. Quentin Byfield was banged up. Kuzmenko banged up. You go through your roster and you turn around and you're like, wow, like this is not perfect. Anze Kopitar's last year, we're trying to salvage that. I know it's been one thing after the other, but it's almost like they tried to do both at the same time. Like, hey, we're going to sell off a couple pieces and get what we can get, which is how they moved Corey Perry for a second. I think anytime anyone offers you a second for a 40-year-old, you're like, yeah, I'll take that. I get that. So then, okay, so Perry out the door. Fogle, I think he just was looking for a change of scenery, so you grant that request. But then why go trade for Scott Laughton? I mean, maybe the thought process is we're thin on centers since Philip Deneau is gone, and the price wasn't exorbitant given that Scott Laughton 1 year ago just went for a first plus.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is just a nice stopgap. Like, I get it, but it's almost like they try to do two things at once. And I don't know if it just makes more sense to go heavy in one direction or heavier in the other. Or do you think being in the middle ground is okay?
Yeah, they're obviously, their hope is to find another star out there some way, however that is. They're kind of banking on the uncertain future with some of those big names whose contracts are up in a couple of years. Obviously, Matthews, McDavid. If they can get in a position to get one more, because they know they need another star somewhere along the line. Got 5 goals in Columbus yesterday. got 3 against Montreal, got 5 against the Islanders. Like, if they can start scoring, that's been their issue, is goal scoring, just a putrid offense. But now that Panarin's kind of going, they move Perry, they get a little, you're going to get a little bit faster, obviously. They're kind of big and fast. They're big and young on the bottom 6. They got the top line going. If Byfield can start to move. But so, yeah, if they can start getting goals here, like I said, 5, 3, 5 in their last 3. They got the Bruins tonight. Then they go to the Islanders. They got the Devils and the Rangers. They got a little East Coast swing here before they go back home. They got the Flyers, Sabres, Mammoth, Flames, Canucks, Mammoth again. So, yeah, this is their chance here, to win 3, 4, 5 in a row, win 8 out of 10, and then with 10 games to go, are they right there with a chance in the final 10? So that's kind of what they're, they got to get a little burst here, but they're right, they're there. And we talked about the West. It's just we're waiting for that team. They're 1 point behind Seattle. Seattle's got a game in hand. Sharks have 2 in hand on the Kings. They both have 66 points. So it looks like, Frank, it's 3 teams for 1 spot for me. Seattle, San Jose, or LA. That's what it's going to come down to here. 20 games for the Kraken, 21 for the Sharks, 19 for the Kings. They're all kind of, they're all kind of playing 500 or slight below in their last 10.
I'm not willing to write off Winnipeg at this point in time, but
okay,
I'm going to say 4 teams for 1 spot. But sticking with the Kings for a second, I mean, does their present and future not hinge on Quentin Byfield stepping up? I mean, if he just turns out to be a 45-point big center, that's not your replacement. That's not your heir apparent for Anze Kopitar. And now that there's no safety net with Phil Deneau gone, who is going to be that number 1 center that can play with the 2 really talented wingers that you have in Kempe and Panarin? I mean, it's an existential question that's facing the Kings that, man, he could not only make their life a lot easier down this stretch here playing some big hockey, but moving forward, like I want to know what Quentin Byfield is, because I think he's taken 2 steps forward, 1 step back, one too many times in his career.
Yeah, he's been consistent, but unfortunately, like you said, 54 points last year, 55 the year before. He probably won't even reach 50 this year. I don't think he's that number 1 star. I like him a lot, and he is 23. Sometimes that magical 24-year-old season is when guys can kind of make a move. He's been durable, hasn't missed games, so that's good. After early on, he was, came in the league as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 40 games, and then so the last 3, at least he's playing. But yeah, for some reason, and he's had some highlight type of goals where you think, man, you would think he would score more. And he's playing 20 minutes a night this year. His ice time has gone up every year, so he's playing. But yeah, I question whether he's going to be that true big time number 1. There's still time for him to be a 30, 40 guy. But yeah, and I think they know that, Frank. I think they see him as a really awesome number 2. They would just love to somehow find a way to get that star number 1, and they see Byfield as a great number 2. And now you have a type of team, if they can find that. Again, it's about getting stars, and that's why they hired Kenny Holland, and that's going to be the goal. Somehow acquire a star through free agency or a trade, unexpected draft pick. Sometimes these guys pop. We see it in different places with late first rounders or a second rounder. But yeah, so right now, but that's an uncertain future. You're trying to hope that the cards fall in your favor and in your lap, and that's not a guarantee.
It's a disastrous, if that's what he ends up being, as a 45 to 50 point center at number 2 overall, that's a miss. And that's squarely on Rob Blake and his staff. Obviously, as it's changed a bit, but like when you go through their draft record, Gabe Vilardi, nice player, plays in Winnipeg now. Rasmus Kupari, fine player, but he plays in Switzerland now. Alex Turcotte, 156 games, still there, has on track for 20 points this year. There are no late round finds. Like Alex Laferriere has been a good pick. He was 3rd round 2020, same year as Byfield. Brock Faber was the great pick, but they traded him. Like, if they went through this rebuild process in LA and ended up getting nothing for it, Like in the end, and I'm not saying Quentin Byfield's nothing, but I'm saying if you're hoping for the guy that's the 6'4", 6'5" center that's going to come in and carry the torch for you moving forward, and then turns out 5 years later he isn't, it's a tough spot. Like I think the Kings are swimming upstream.
Yeah, so Slow was obviously the pick in that draft. It was a tough one to kind of determine. Obviously, that was COVID as well, and people weren't sure. But yeah, Byfield looked like he was going to be the nice pick. And again, I still give him one more year to see if something can happen. But he's still 23. He's a big body. He's got he's got flash. So we'll see. But for now, the Kings are still star search Ed McMahon mode right now. Speak of the Devils. What's next in New Jersey? This is an organization that I think is really at the precipice here. Frank, which way is it going to go? Is it going to continue to slide backwards, or can they reboot, reconfigure something this offseason and get moving forward and, stay in front of the Rangers, stay in front of some of these teams who you would think should be behind them?
Yeah, and I think they're completely caught in neutral. I mean, they didn't make a trade at this deadline, not of consequence. And now there's a number of questions that exist following that. Did Tom Fitzgerald have the autonomy to make sizable trades for the New Jersey Devils? Because a lot of people around the league believe that there will be an opening there once this season ends. I'm not predicting or projecting. I'm just telling you that that's what hopeful candidates, as they're talking about Nashville and other potential job openings, they look at New Jersey and say, hey, there's a lot of signals here. And then there's a lot of other stuff to really unpack and wade through. So Tom Fitzgerald said after the deadline that he wasn't shopping Dougie Hamilton. Okay. Why? I mean, I know Dougie Hamilton has full control, but my understanding was, based on back and forth with his agent, was that they were willing to consider alternatives to try and make something happen. Now, he played pretty well for a stretch of time, and that's great, but he's also at $9+ million a year. And Luke Hughes is at $9+ million a year. And they've got all these other defensemen, Kovacevic and Dylan, and these other guys on their books that have term. So then after all that, the thought process is, well, maybe we should listen on Simon Nemec. And I'm going, Simon Nemec, like, that guy's been awesome. Like, he's young. Like, if your team is trying to get to where it wants to get to, like, I want 5 more Simon Nemecs, not Kovacevic and not these Siegenthaler and not these other guys that are just kind of there and signed for long term and for not insignificant money. So what do the Devils do moving forward, and where does it start? Like, you got to make a hard decision somewhere. And I'm not saying that Tom Fitzgerald isn't willing to do that. I'm just saying that, like, it's got to start with moving out Dougie Hamilton's contract, or got to start with moving, Siegenthaler and Kovacevic or whoever it is, to create the room so that you can keep a Simon Nemec and that Luke Hughes can get the space that he needs. And that's just on their back end. They also need depth scoring. They can't just be on the superstars to produce. So I think New Jersey's in a world of hurt. Like, if you had said before this season started that the Devils would be well below the Flyers in the standings, I think a lot of people would be pretty shocked by that based on the expectations for that team coming in.
Yeah, they are a bit of a, I think people think they've had more success than they've had recently, right? They lost in the first round last year, didn't make the playoffs the year before. They did win a playoff series in the fall of '93, but that was after a 4-year playoff drought. And when they won that playoff series in 23, that was the first playoff series they won since they went to the Cup final in 12. Like, there hasn't been a lot of success there. And obviously, we're seeing number 1 overall draft picks, Hischier, Hughes, Luke Hughes, a high draft pick, Nemec. Okay, so now how do we, and individually, look at those guys like, okay, those are good players. Like, we should have more team success. We are adding good young players, but the other stuff they've done, Timo Meyer is not a 40-goal scorer, right? Palat was the guy you were going to bring in after that amazing success to and that seemed like at the time the right move. You slightly overpay a guy like that. Kaloran did it in Anaheim just to try to bring an adult in the room, kind of bring these young guys along. That seemed like the right play, but again, it just doesn't always work for whatever reason. Nobody knows for sure. You identify, you make your move. But now they're in a situation, like I said, Frank, where it could really go either way. They need someone who's going to come in here with a plan, and this is who I'm going to trade, and this is who we're going to try to, to build up these assets, because now they're going to get another top 10 pick this year. And so do they identify a vet with that pick and Dougie Hamilton and try to make a move somewhere for a player? Do they need to make hockey trades here, or do we just kind of start over again with prospects and with a Hughes base and bring guys in? It's a tough spot for them.
Hockey trades. They've got enough pieces. They've got enough intrigue. Someone in our YouTube chat, and I hadn't thought of this, Mechanicsville 804 says, as he's watching today, how about Dougie Hamilton straight up for Darnell Nurse? Now, I know why the Devils wouldn't do that, because Hamilton's played at a higher level, but man, that would be kind of interesting. I don't know. So I'm not saying that, but just right. That people, you can start to get crazy. Like, think about what changes the scope of your team and how you can get better, but also look at the blueprint that one of Tom Fitzgerald's close friends, Bill Guerin, lined up in Minnesota. Sometimes, cutting ties with Ryan Suter and Zach Parise and creating $14 million worth of dead cap space on your books, as hard as that is to do and as painful as that is, it's addition by subtraction. Get your team culture right, get your team heading in the right direction, and put a stake in the ground and say, this is what we are, this is what we're building for, this is how we're going to get there. And even if it's painful for a little bit, this is the path I believe that's necessary to get there, because I think the Devils have too many passengers on their team at this point in time that they need to sort out who's a dog and who's not.
Yeah, and even with Minnesota, when they made those moves, it was about to, okay, let's start over. We have this Kaprizov young star. Okay, we know he's going to be good, but Boldy wasn't Boldy yet, and they had other pieces.
They made the playoffs while doing that.
Right. Yeah, but it has worked out. This ain't easy. And that's the big lesson. It's hard, and you just got to keep trying, keep digging, keep drafting, keep trying to scratch and claw. There's 32 competitive teams with pretty good front offices and very good scouting staff. So it's hard to get really, really lucky. And so we'll see what happens in New Jersey. Ask the Insider. Asking the YouTube chat. Is that your YouTube question right there? Do you have another one?
Yeah, I've been scrolling through the chat today. So someone was asking, how come Quebec is not, what happened to the Quebec hockey star? There were none on Team Canada. Be an interesting sort of deep dive to take about the state of hockey in Quebec. Why is that? Why were there no incredible Quebecois stars on? I mean, when's the last time that would have happened? I mean, you had Nick Suzuki, of course, representing the Montreal Canadiens, but that's not the same thing as having a native French speaker on the team. Hadn't thought about that. We've done deep dives on the goalie front and how come Quebec isn't producing top end goalies like they used to, but what has happened to the state of hockey in Quebec? Interesting.
It would be a good doc, because like you said, that's certainly, back in the once upon a time kids, Montreal got first dibs at all the Quebec-born players. That's why they built the dynasty they did. It was very unfair, actually. But yeah, the Guy Lafleurs, the Jean Beliveau, obviously the goaltenders with Brodeur and Waugh. Like what is happening? Like, why aren't we seeing? That was always obviously it was a very interesting flavor it brought to the league. That French flavor was part of what gave hockey for me growing up. That was that mysterious aspect of hockey that I loved. Just kind of like just so many. It was much more flavorful than the other sports in a different way. But yeah, it's a great point. And what has happened there? We're going to get Got to get a documentary. I'm a big documentary fan, so I watched the And One documentary last night on that. It was kind of
Oh, that's
obviously
a
a
good
slow
one. I've
night in
seen
the
that one.
NHL. It was really good.
Yeah.
It told the story of And One. It was a really
And
really
one
interesting
right in my
one.
backyard in Westchester, Pennsylvania.
Exactly. So I recommend
I
that
was a
one.
big
So then-
N1. Like when I was in elementary school, like I was rocking the N1 basketball shoes when I played elementary and middle school basketball.
yeah, they talked about the rocket ship, the Stephon Marbury shoe, and then he breaks his foot on night one with the new shoe. That was very bad for them. Got back in the
Yeah.
game, did pretty well. It's been sold a bunch of times now, and it still kind of exists with about the 13th different owner, but it's a really, really good story. All right, hashtag hockey. We scour the social media world to bring you the constant variety of hockey content. Finding the next unique shot, Frank.
I absolutely love this from the Kraken Hockey Network. They do a great job with their broadcast. This was on Saturday night. And of course, outside of Climate Pledge Arena, they've got a drone floating. And they said this might be the first ever replay in an NHL game from outside an arena. And also the only one that you could do this in, because the only one that has glass and windows on their exterior like that. But just pretty awesome to see this 1T and the goal that goes in to just have the drone up at the right time. And hey, let's see if we can find something that looks a little bit different.
Yeah, cool little field house effect, like the great Yost Arena in Michigan, that old school field house feel that all those gymnasiums and rinks had way back in the day, 100 years ago. And yeah, that's a great rink to call a game. Haven't been there this year, but has kind of a gondola effect. For us broadcasters, you're out, you're over the ice. Great vantage point to call a game. It's a rink that's mainly underground. You walk up and go down, which is really kind of a cool effect as well. So it's a wonderful arena. And now they're trying to get some more playoff magic this year, right on the playoff bubble for the Kraken. But always a cool place. Certainly, if you travel once a year to go see your favorite team play and go to pick one city a year, that's not a bad one there. And actually, probably hit Vancouver, Seattle, fly to Vancouver, drive down and fly back from Seattle, see a couple cool cities and cool arenas, and check it out for that road trip that you're looking for once a year. All right. Got to speculate to accumulate. We mentioned last night, not many times it's kind of a blah schedule, but tonight's a fun one. A lot of key games, lots to choose from, Frank. So you have more to choose from. I'm going to blame last night's, Al, just on a bad board. You pick one. You might not have if you didn't have to, but who you like tonight?
So we mentioned it as the game of the night, but the Sharks are a pretty sizable underdog, actually a big underdog in Buffalo. We know what this game means for the Sharks, and I'm sure the sports books are looking at this saying, hey, the Sabres just took down one of the best teams in the league, showed tons of fight. Buffalo's been a raucous environment. Speaking of the Tampa Bay Lightning, the question I would ask the Sabres today is, how full is your cup? How satisfied are you with winning 8-7 in a game like that? And will you bring it tonight against the Sharks? I'm going to just take a flyer on the Sharks here at plus 170. I think the odds are just juicy enough. And yes, I know there's travel involved and not a quick trip and all those things, but the Sharks have a ton to play for in this playoff hunt. They're right there. They're right in the mix. And it's not that the Sabres don't. They're chasing an Atlantic Division title after not making the playoffs for 14 years. But the spread between these two teams at plus 170 is quite a lot. So I'm going to just take a flyer on the Sharks, see what happens.
Hey, again, that's you looking at game tape. That's you digging deep in the numbers, looking at schedules, thinking about, possible downer after that amazing high of a playoff game. But man, this team is cooking. They have 28 wins in their last 35 games. That's unbelievable stretch. That's number 7 on the all-time list, Frank, to win 28 of 35. That is just history. We've been talking about this on Frankly Hockey for months, that this is a playoff team. This is a real team. Forget about all that, the streak and the bubble stuff. This is a legit top 3 Eastern Conference team. And now here they are. So yeah, you're gonna count on a little bit of a letdown, not a letdown per se, but just emotion. Sometimes the tank is just empty in a long regular season.
Hey, maybe it's a Sharks overtime win. I mean, it doesn't mean that the Sabres wouldn't have played well. It could be anything that gets you the win. It's just, did they win? But, now that you said that they're flirting with history, I saw this comparison going around on social media, and I've been trying to think about how applicable it is. But some people are now comparing this Sabres team to the Blues in 2019, being in last place in January and coming all the way back to win. Do you see any connection there?
Defense is big. That defense was known as a big one, right? Parenko and Edmondson. Obviously, they had the star in Pietrangelo. That's Darlene, who both
You had to
good
mention
size.
Parayko and Buffalo, didn't you?
Sorry, it's just the facts, kids. But yeah, that would have been a nice ad for them to get some of that 2019 magic. But yeah, big. Then up front, it was a very young Robert Thomas. He wasn't yet a big contributor, but but otherwise, yeah, offensively, they're like I said, they got some dog in them. They have their own young players, like St. Louis did, but relying on the vets, Shen. I don't know if they really have a Shen, but Tuck and Thomas, Norris, we'll see about him. Can he play a grindy, hard, physical playoff style, not get hurt? He's but it's not terrible. Lindy Ruff, Craig Berube, certainly a veteran coach, someone who's been around for a
I
long
don't see
time.
it.
But yeah, it's
but
probably a
that's
bit of a
just me.
stretch. I think it's a different type of Sabres team. Yeah.
Yeah, and I view this as a Sabres team that's really just kind of coming into its own, not a team that had legitimate Stanley Cup expectations prior to the season starting. And to be fair, like for 7-8 years, like that was the Blues. Like the Blues did have, like they had some great Western Conference teams that had playoff failures. The Blues, interestingly enough, won kind of in relatively similar fashion. Like they broke through in a similar way that the Caps did. The Caps won in 2018 after having all those great teams, and it maybe wasn't the best iteration of the Caps. Maybe the Blues team that won wasn't as good as the 2011-12 St. Louis Blues, or pick whatever other Blues team was really good. You never really know. I'm just wondering if the mojo that the Sabres have, maybe that's the part that's applicable in this case, that, St. Louis was like a fridge running downhill. Once they got to the playoffs, they just kind of steamrolled everyone. Is that possible now for the Sabres?
Yeah, Ryan O'Reilly was their leading scorer, 77 points. Tarasenko had 33 goals. You'd probably take Tage Thompson over that. He might get 40. Shen, that's solid kind of center, playoff center, though. But Ryan McLeod has kind of fallen in that. David Perron had 23 goals. Pietrangelo, we mentioned, Bozak, Schwartz, Dunn, Thomas, Sun. It is amazing that team won a Stanley Cup. When you start going down the roster, that was quite a run. They had a young Barbashev, was 23 years old. He had 14 goals there. We mentioned the young 19-year-old Thomas, just coming into the league, had 9 goals that year. So, but again, Jay Bouwmeester, Edmondson, Parayko, they were big trees, big, kind of like the Canadian Olympic team, right? In terms of defensemen. Yep. With Darlene, Samuelson, Powers young, doesn't quite play that way. Byram's a little smaller, but got a lot of jam to his game. So, not quite, but hey, you're looking to link yourself up. It just shows that sometimes there is a year like that where a team kind of sneaks through for whatever reason. And I would not be outlandish if for some reason it is Buffalo. I would not be super duper shocked, but I would be surprised if they beat Tampa in the second round. I would color me surprised if that were to happen. Mm-hmm. Vasilevsky wasn't in net the other night. He's not giving up 7, and right. So it's different when you're grinding out with Andre Vasilevsky in net and a full Tampa Bay team. All right, the last word, and oh man, it's just to hear people talk about Troy Murray. It's just unanimous. It's been a battle he had for a long time, and it's unfortunately when someone has a battle that long, this day is going to come. You just hope it's just as far off into the future as possible. But Troy Murray, great friend of hockey, passes away.
Yeah, and I wanted to give some time to really give a proper tribute to Troy Murray, who brought so much joy to so many people, whether it was in the Chicago community, whether it was back in his home of St. Albert and Troy Murray Arena, whether it was, in the Blackhawks broadcast booth as both a TV and radio analyst. As you see, they honored Troy before their game on Monday night. Just a friend to all, someone who brought immense happiness to the rink, like just one of those people that is happy to be there every day. And I think that part is really what stands out about being in and around Troy Murray's orbit over the last, couple decades, is just a guy that really wanted to be at the rink and be around everyone and joke and tell stories. And so it's been impressive to see the outpouring of love and support from around the hockey world, from the Alumni Association and all the people who played with Troy or who worked with him, the way that he mentored some up and coming young broadcasters like a Charlie Remiliotis. It's been touching to see all those people speak of what Troy Murray brought to the game, which is a ton.
12 years in Chicago, had a 99-point season back in 85, 86. Went to North Dakota, one of those Canadian-born players who went to North Dakota. Captain of the World Junior team, as Darren Pang talked about. College kids didn't usually get that gig back then. That was, they kind of took care of their own. But Troy was so impressive. Third-round pick of Chicago in 1980, and went on to play a few years with Winnipeg. We heard Scott Arneal talk about him, the former Jet. That's always a special fraternity there in Winnipeg when someone passes through Winnipeg. A couple years in Ottawa, Colorado, 13 games with the Penguins. But yeah, this has been a battle that's, those of us in the business who kind of live in press boxes when we go to games, and obviously Darren Pang's a great friend of mine, and every time I saw him, it was like, what's the latest with Troy? And it's, it's up and down, and man, I went through it with Stuart Scott, once they're first diagnosed, and it keeps coming back. You're just trying to get every year you can, and man, and you can see how touching it is in Chicago, and how beloved he was, and how comforted, I'm sure, in his fight was to be in a family like Chicago, and that hockey family in Chicago. It's a warm one. It really is. It's in the middle of the country. It's Midwest warm. And I'm sure for Troy, it was comforting to be a part of that alumni and be a part of that organization, to feel the support and the strength and the look in people's eyes when they talk to him.
Well said.
Thanks so much. This is Frankly Hockey. We're here 5 days a week on X, YouTube, and the Victory Plus app, Monday through Friday, noon to 1 Eastern. Thank you so much for listening and watching. We'll see you again tomorrow.